Welcome to a new format of mine that I hope to make into a recurring series if the audience likes it. I call it Political Atlas, and we will explore current events, politics, diplomacy, and recent history with the use of maps. And I would really like to highlight different countries and their various intricacies, conflicts, and their respective political systems, their respective histories. And before we start, likes and subscriptions would be appreciated. Cheers. For episode 1, let's go to Italy. Italy is a republic, meaning it does not have a king. This is the case since 1946. Back then, Italians had a king, and then they had a referendum on the monarchy, which had existed since 1861, and 54% of Italians voted to establish a republic. That is already a close margin, but it becomes geographically very interesting once we map it by area. If you draw a line along the southern borders of the Siena, Perugia, and Ancona districts, every single district north of this line voted for the Republic, and every single district south of this line, including the islands of Sardinia and Sicily, voted for the monarchy. The 1946 referendum is only one of many examples of the deep divisions between North Italy and South Italy, the latter often nicknamed the Mezzogiorno. If we use the boundaries as defined by the Italian National Institute of Statistics, then we can see that the areas defined by the government as Northwest Italy, Northeast Italy, and Central Italy together have 39.2 million people, whereas the areas defined as South Italy and Insular Italy have only 20 million. This population difference is also visible when looking at the distribution of Italy's largest cities. 14 of the top 20 are in the north, only 6 in the south. The north includes much of the traditional industrial area of the country, including the Industrial Triangle, and many of Italy's most well-known industrial products come from the north. In the name of automotive manufacturer Fiat, the T stands for Turin, for example. The differences between the north and the south are most clear in economic analysis. The north is richer than the south. This development has been ongoing since the 1860s, when the modern Italian state was founded. Whereas the GDP per capita between northerners and southerners was roughly equal in the mid-1860s, the southerners declined to 90% of the northern GDP per capita by 1890, to 80% by 1910, and fell all the way to under 50% by the late 1940s. If the average income of 1954 Italy was 100, then the figure for Piedmont would have been 154, and the figure for Calabria just 52. By the beginning of the 21st century, the southern GDP per capita was 60% of the northern GDP per capita. The divisions between North and South go beyond economics, however. With the growth of the economic rift beginning in the 1860s, there was increasingly a cultural component of the North-South paradigm, called the Southern Question. There have been various historical attempts to explain this, like Emilio Sereni's thesis in 1974, formulating an increased economic interconnectedness which exposed the pre-existing structural economic deficiencies of the southern countryside, whereas Antonio Gramsci in the 1920s pointed to an alliance between northern industrialists and southern landowners to result in a sociological dualism that condemned the south to be the periphery of the north. More recently, the emergence of the Northern League, Lega Nord, as a significant force in Italian politics after the 1980s, initially as a faction of active northern separatism, has increasingly taken back into view that the division of north and south is not just a question of southern economics, but also a question of northern attitudes. There is an ethnic majority, that of the center-south, brought together by Roman centralism, which has occupied all the key positions of the state, even here in the north. We are colonized. Inspired by the ever-growing social Darwinism of the late 19th century, the northern Italian criminologist Cesare Lombroso stated in 1897, "It is to the African and Eastern elements that Italy owes, fundamentally, the greater frequency of homicides in Calabria, Sicily, and Sardinia, while the least occur where the Nordic races predominate. What Lombroso is referencing here, the greater frequency of homicides, is southern crime, most famously associated with various mafia groups, which have become a stereotypical representation of Southerners in the eyes of Northerners, and which Lombroso, of course, explains with racial differences. The Mafia's influence in Southern politics was immense, and the anti-mafia movement of the 20th century met many hardships in breaking the regional corruption, often in the form of assassination. Nonetheless, the anti-mafia efforts left their mark. The proportion of Italian homicides connected to the Mafia dropped from 30% in the early 90s to 10% now. But that does not mean that the Mafia is gone from southern Italy. Protection rackets continue to plague local business people, and Mafia trials often dominate Italian headlines. So where does this leave us? Well, we have an Italian South that is significantly poorer and less industrialized than the Italian North. We have a political culture of mutual distrust, if not contempt, and we have two widely divergent historical pathways. And yet, it is all Italy. And now you know a little more about it. I will keep this video a bit shorter, and I thank you for watching, and I'm looking forward to some feedback. Please suggest improvements to the format and the videography, and suggest future topics. I really appreciate it. Cheers.